In 1978, 5 men drove into the snowy mountains of California. They abandoned a working car. They walked into the freezing darkness, wearing nothing but light jackets and tennis shoes. And months later, when the snow melted and the bodies were found, the mystery didn't end. It only got darker. One of them was found inside a warm shelter trailer. He was wrapped in sheets. There was propane for heat. There were dozens of military-grade rations, enough to feed all 5 men for a year. And yet, he had lost 100 pounds and starved to death. Why didn't he open a can of food? Why didn't he turn on the gas? What were they so afraid of that they chose to die in the cold rather than go back to their car? This is not just a tragedy. This is the American Dyatlov Pass. This is the story of the Yuba County Five. To understand the horror of this case, you have to understand the victims. We call them the Yuba County Five, but in their hometown, they were simply known as the Boys. Bill Sterling, Jack Hoot, Ted Weiher, and Jack Madruga. They were grown men, ranging in age from 24 to 32, but they were gentle souls. They all had mild intellectual disabilities. They lived with their parents. They were best friends. They were inseparable. And then there was the 5th man, Gary Mathias. Gary was different. He didn't have the same intellectual disabilities as the others. He was an army veteran, but he had his own demons. Gary suffered from severe schizophrenia. When he was on his medication, he was fine, but without it, his mind could become a dangerous, chaotic place. On February 24th, 1978, the group had a great day planned. They were huge basketball fans. They drove from their homes in Yuba City to Chico, about 50 miles away, to watch a college basketball game. They took Jack Madruga's beloved car, 1969 Mercury Montego. Jack loved that car. He took better care of it than he did himself. He would never let anything happen to it. The game ended around 10 p.m. Their team won. The boys were happy. They were ecstatic. They hopped into the Mercury Montego and headed back towards Yuba City. We know they made one stop. They stopped at Bear's Market in Chico to buy snacks. They bought a Hostess cherry pie, a Langendorf lemon pie, a Snickers bar, a Marathon bar, and 2 Pepsis. The clerk watched them leave the store. They got back into the car. They should have turned south towards home. It was a straight shot, an easy drive. They should have been in their warm beds by midnight. But they never made it home when the parents woke up the next morning. The beds were empty. This was immediately alarming. These were not men who stayed out late. They were creatures of habit. If they said they were coming home, they came home. The police were called. A search began. But for days, there was nothing. No car, no sign of them. It was as if the earth had swallowed them whole. 3 days later, a park ranger found the car. But where he found it made absolutely no sense. The Mercury Montego was found 70 miles away from where they should have been. And it wasn't on the highway. It was deep in the Plumas National Forest. They had driven up a treacherous, winding mountain road. The elevation was 4,400 feet. The road was covered in snowdrifts. When police examined the car, the mystery deepened. The car was not stuck. The tires had spun a little in the snow, but 5 grown men could have easily pushed it out. The gas tank was a quarter full. The engine started immediately. Jack Madruga, the driver, was a careful man, but there were no dings on the car, no scratches. He had driven up a dark, bumpy mountain road in the middle of the night without hitting a single rock or tree. It was perfect driving. Inside the car, they found the candy wrappers from the market. They found maps, but the men were gone. There were no footprints. A blizzard had hit the mountain shortly after they arrived, wiping away any trace of where they went. Why did they drive up there? Why did they stop? And most importantly, why did they abandon a warm, working car to walk into a snowstorm? This is where the story introduces a witness, and his testimony turns this from a missing persons case into a horror movie. A man named Joseph Shans was also on the mountain that night. He had gotten his own car stuck in the snow earlier in the evening. He suffered a mild heart attack while trying to push it out, so he was sitting in his car, with the engine running, waiting for help. Around midnight, he saw headlights behind him. It was the Mercury Montego. Shans saw the car stop behind him. He saw a group of men get out. He also saw something else. He saw what looked like a woman holding a baby in the headlights. Shans was in pain. He yelled for help. "Hey, help me." The moment he yelled, the lights on the Mercury Montego went out. The men stopped moving. Shans yelled again, "Please, I need help."
Silence.
Then he saw flashlights turn on. He heard whistling. It sounded like a group of people communicating in the dark, but they never came to him. They ignored his screams, and eventually the flashlights moved away, disappearing into the forest. Why would 5 gentle men, who were known to be kind and helpful, ignore a man screaming for help? What were they hiding from? Or who were they hiding from? For months, the mountain kept its secrets. The snow was too deep to search. The families waited in agony. Then came the spring thaw, and with it, the gruesome discoveries. In June, a group of bikers riding through the forest found the first body. It was nearly 20 miles away from the car. Think about that, 20 miles, uphill. In deep snow. In the pitch black, they found a trailer. It was a Forest Service trailer used by workers in the summer. Inside the trailer laid out on a bed, was the body of Ted Weiher. The scene inside that trailer is the most haunting part of this entire story. Ted was wrapped in 8 sheets. His head was on a pillow. It looked like someone had tucked him in. But Ted looked different. When he disappeared, he was a heavy man, weighing over 200 pounds. The body in the trailer weighed barely 100 pounds. Ted Weiher had lived in that trailer for weeks, maybe even months after the disappearance. He had starved to death. And here is the horror. The trailer was stocked with food. There was a locker in the trailer. It was unlocked. Inside, there were dozens of cans of Saracens military food. Enough to keep all 5 men alive for a year. Ted had opened a few cans, but he stopped. There was a propane tank outside that could have provided heat. It was full. The valve was closed. All they had to do was turn a knob, and they would have been warm. There were matches. There was paper. There were wooden furniture pieces they could have burned in the fireplace, but they didn't touch them. Ted lay in that bed, freezing and starving, while everything he needed to save his life was right there. Why? Psychologists have debated this for decades. Was it learned helplessness? Did they fear that stealing the food or using the gas was against the rules? Did they think someone was watching them? Or was it Gary Mathias? Gary's shoes were found in the trailer, but Gary was gone. Ted's feet were badly frostbitten. Gangrene had set in. He couldn't walk. Someone must have been taking care of him. Someone tucked him in. Someone opened those few cans of food for him. Was it Gary? And if so, where did Gary go? As the search expanded around the trailer, the other bodies were found, and their ends were just as tragic. Jack Madruga and Bill Sterling were found about 4 miles from the trailer. They had never made it to the shelter. They had collapsed in the snow. Animals had gotten to them. There wasn't much left, but the evidence showed that one of them had sat down to rest, and the other had stayed with him, refusing to leave his friend until they both froze to death. Jack Hoot was found even closer to the trailer. His father, who had been helping with the search, was actually the one who found him. He found his son's backbone and a pair of Levi's jeans. 4 bodies, 1 missing. Gary Mathias was never found. To this day, he remains a ghost on that mountain. So, what really happened that night? The most popular theory is that they took a wrong turn. They got lost. They panicked. But that doesn't explain why they drove so perfectly up a difficult mountain road. It doesn't explain why they fled a working car. Another theory focuses on Gary Mathias. Remember, he had schizophrenia and he had missed his medication. Did he have a psychotic episode? Did he hallucinate that something was chasing them? Did he convince the others who trusted him, who looked up to him as the veteran, that they were in danger? We have to leave the car. They are coming. Did he lead them into the woods on a march of death, convinced that staying near the road meant death? It would explain why they ignored Joseph Sean's screaming for help. In their minds, maybe Sean's was the enemy. Maybe his calls for help were a trap. It would explain the trailer. If Gary believed they had to hide, maybe he forbade them from starting a fire because the smoke would give away their position. Maybe he told them not to eat the food because it was poisoned. Ted Weiher, trusting his friend, lay in that bed, slowly dying, waiting for a rescue that never came, terrified to touch the life-saving supplies next to him. Or is there a third option? Joseph Sean's said he saw a woman with a baby. No woman was ever found. No baby was ever reported missing. What did he see? And there were reports from a nearby town of a mysterious red pickup truck seen near the store where the boys bought their snacks. Did someone follow them? Was there a real person chasing them up that mountain? We will likely never know. The Yuba County Five case leaves us with a profound sense of emptiness. It is a story of friendship. Yes, they stuck together. They didn't abandon each other in the snow. But it is also a story of a terrifying mental breakdown, a group hallucination, or fear so primal that it overrode the basic instinct to survive. Imagine the final nights in that trailer, the wind howling outside, Ted Weiher lying in the dark, shivering, the can of food sitting on the shelf, the metal glinting in the moonlight. He is hungry. He is so hungry, but he doesn't reach for it because whatever is outside, whatever drove them up that mountain, scarier than death itself. That is the true horror of Yuba County. It wasn't the snow that killed them. It wasn't the cold. It was fear. And somewhere in those woods, the bones of Gary Mathias might still be waiting, holding the final answer to the question, why? Thank you for watching. This case is one of the most baffling mysteries in American history. What do you think happened? Was it a mental break? Was it foul play? Or was it a tragic mistake? If you want to hear more stories about the dark side of human psychology and unexplained mysteries, make sure to subscribe.